So guys, we welcome you to our final tea time. You know, we've been doing these and kind of in concert with some places that we've been praying about. And today's the last one. We prayed some about the Middle East, and I'm here with Jake J.
That's right.
Who has been in the Middle East several times. In fact, you were saying earlier, you've been on every trip into
That's
the
right.
Middle East.
That's right.
Yeah.
We've only done 3 so far, but I've been on all of them.
Yeah. Well, today we find ourselves a long way from the Middle East. Right?
That's true, although it's kind of similar with all the water that is around us.
Yeah, I'm
It's
sure.
got the same feel.
All right, so, well, I mean, that kind of brings the question. Like, let me first look. This is tea time.
Okay.
Where's your tea?
Well, I wasn't informed that I needed to have some. I have some tea that I brought from the Middle East that we could be enjoying.
We should be drinking the Middle East tea. But since we're out here on the lake today,
It's a little warm for tea.
it's a little warm, and it just doesn't really go with the bumpy boat ride.
That's right.
Is that it?
That's right. I prefer to drink my tea, not wear it.
So here's a guy who works up here at Smith Mountain Lake.
That's right.
Beautiful lake nestled in the southwestern Virginia.
Jewel of the Blue Ridge, baby.
Is that what we call it?
That's right.
How did you come to this decision? Like, okay, you know what? I think I'll head out to the Middle East. And when we say Middle East, you guys are going into northern part of Iraq. It's not exactly. It's not Southwest Virginia, and it's not. You know, it's not Dubai either. So
That's true.
How do you come to this decision? What happened?
Well, so Jake Fuller, field team lead, good buddy of mine. He was at my parents' house for a church function, and he point blank asked me if I'd have any interest in going to Iraq with him, and I just said yes.
So like from the very beginning, from the start, it was like, man, oh my God.
No doubt. I mean, there wasn't no hesitation. There was no, and I've heard about Sudan and all the other places that ATC is, and I've never felt a real desire to go to any of those places. But when he said Iraq was on the table, it didn't even cross my mind to think about it.
That's funny. Now it's so in Iraq, of course we're in northern Iraq, and some of the people you've interacted with there are the Yazidi.
Correct. Yep. That's the first people group that we really started working with there, were the Yazidi.
And how did you find the Yazidi?
Well, so the Yazidi have been historically persecuted. When we first went into Iraq as a country with our troops, stopping the genocide of the Yazidi people was one of the main reasons that President Bush gave for us going in there. So
maybe
right. That was one of the reasons he presented for us going in there, right? So a lot of people have heard about the Yazidi and the plight they've been in, and just how terribly they've been treated by not just Saddam Hussein's regime, but by everyone there, basically, going back a long time. It was obvious that they were a people group that needed help and needed people there. So it was really exciting to start with a group like that that's so internationally known for being persecuted.
Yeah, that's the Yazidi. Dude, I remember 2016, that when ISIS coming out of like Mosul, as they kind of came in there, the stories coming out of there were brutal. Yeah,
and where we were working with the Yazidi, I mean, there's signs everywhere for Mosul right down the road, right?
Yeah.
So this was where, it didn't come from Mosul originally, but a lot of the Yazidi that got run out of that area or ran out through that area ended up where we were working. Right. So,
it's kind of where you were working with those guys. It really is kind of ground zero.
Oh, 100%. Yeah, I mean, so I guess technically ground zero would have been Sinjar, where the Yazidi, the religious, origin land, right? That's where ISIS ran them out of. But the most Yazidis that are displaced in Iraq are in where we were working.
So for me, it was kind of cool. Like the emergency relief that we got to do in there. I know there was like when you guys went in, one point you're building tents so that they're kind of taking care for the winter.
Mm-hmm.
Did stuff with if I remember, we did some food distribution in there. We did kerosene where we were heating. So
Absolutely.
It gets cold.
It gets super cold in the mountains of Iraq.
So for me, that's really cool. I like that part of it.
Sure.
But my thinking is, okay, we've developed some relationships among the Yazidi people, and these guys are pretty close to outsiders.
Sure.
And so we've
closed.
Yeah.
Sorry, I thought they said close.
Oh no.
They're very not. Yes, they're very close to outsiders. Yes.
So they're very closed to outsiders. But I guess my hope and my prayer in that is that at some point, as they move back into Sinjar, nobody's had access up in there, right?
At all, yeah.
So if we had enough relationship, as they move back into Sinjar, we could move back in there with him and continue to share the gospel there.
Absolutely, yeah. And the Mukhtar, the leader of the camp where we've been working, has expressly told Jake and myself that he wants us to come with them when they go back there.
So that's an awesome opportunity.
Oh, absolutely. And this is a man that we've sat down with. You know, he's their faith leader and the camp leader, right? So we've sat down with him and a Muslim government employee, Yazidi camp leader, and us, and had a Bible open and been able to have these conversations with them.
What was that one thing he said coming after? I think it was after the second time you guys had been in, and he was talking about the difference between Christians who had come to them and Muslims who had come to them.
Sure. Well, there aren't Muslims that have come to them, or even Yazidi.
Yeah,
right. Exactly. Well, so that's what. So even the Muslim man who worked for the government said Christians come to help, Muslims don't. The other Yazidi don't. They're looking out for themselves, not themselves and other Muslims, literally just themselves.
Yeah.
But the Christians, they know, are there to help. So that's why it doesn't matter what faith most of the people there are. When they know you're a Christian, they know you're there for a good reason. So it's obvious some groundwork has been laid there by lots of Christian organizations, which is nice. You know, there's obviously two sides to that sword every time.
Sure.
But it's cool to see how open they've become to Christianity just because of the love that's been shown by Christians there.
That's the point, right? This I got to come through. I was leaving. I don't remember. I was leaving South Sudan, and got to come through just for a day to hang out with you guys in Iraq. When was that?
That was January.
Was that
January of this year. Yeah, it was 5 months ago.
Okay. So I thought this other location where ATC's beginning to work. I think the promise there is
it's unreal.
Spectacular.
It's unreal. And we've really, we've done a good job laying the groundwork with the Yazidi. There's some other political forces at play in that area, so we've definitely begun to establish that relationship there to a point that we can maintain it.
Like so, last time you were there,
right?
You had a little issue, didn't you?
Yeah, we ended up being taken into their secret police offices a couple times and being followed back to our hotel and basically forced out of the city where we were working with the Yazidi. So
was that fun?
It was, in retrospect, sure, yeah, absolutely. I mean, I'm ready to get back. Yeah.
Well, I always think, that's on the backside of it, that's kind of a good time.
Oh, yeah. Well, you always sit in church and listen to the cool stories that you or Dowdy share, or somebody's got of the crazy thing they went through. You think, like, man, what a cool experience. And then when you're in it, you're like, yeah, no, this isn't that cool,
But it's going to be.
But, man, it's awesome. And I tell you what, you figure out what scripture you really care about when I can only look up a couple verses real quick, right? Yeah.
Thematic to missions.
Yeah.
Today's suffering, this isn't in the Bible, but it should be.
It should be. Yeah.
If I were writing the Bible, I would put this in it. Today's suffering is tomorrow's bragging rights.
Beautiful. Beautiful. That's perfect. That's the best way to put it. And I can't wait to get back.
I'm going to call that Dave chapter 3, verse 2.
I'm excited to read chapters 1 and 2.
You are getting ready to look back. And as you go back, we don't, of course, with all that's going on, it's hard to know when that is.
Right.
But as you go back, really there's a new pocket. I was saying there's a new pocket of people that we're working with.
Absolutely.
Talk about those guys.
So the area in Iraq where we're working is actually part of Kurdistan, right, which goes into a couple other technical nation states, right, Syria and Iran and a little bit of Turkey.
Yeah.
So they're Kurds they're Iraqi Kurds, Iranian Kurds, Syrian Kurds. There's Kurds from all different places. So we're still in Iraq. We're other side of northern Iraq, basically, but we're working with Iranian Kurds that basically they've been in these refugee camps for generations, right? These are people whose family were run out by the Shah, like right after World War II, maybe. So they've had kids who have now had kids in these refugee camps.
Yeah.
They're not recognized by Iran's government. They're not recognized by Iraq's government. They have no passports, no documentation. So they're trying to basically set themselves up to return to Iran eventually.
Well, without saying too much.
Sure.
Would it be fair for me to say these are guys who are not, who are kind of resistant to the current Iranian regime?
That would be a 100% factual statement.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Resistant is a.
It's fascinating to me. I was thinking about when Jesus comes along, he spent more time in Galilee, and that was kind of the corpus of his ministry, as opposed to Jerusalem.
Okay.
Jerusalem was like the city where the religious system and everything's kind of set up. Galilee was kind of known as like the rebels, right? And so I kind of make this parallel. These guys who are kind of in their mentality and in their thinking, even in their culture, it's kind of a rebel culture.
Sure. Well, they have to be.
They have to be.
They have
to survive. And so I just think it's really interesting, like that culture and that mindset. You know, Jesus focused a lot of his ministry among the same culture and mindset.
Sure, absolutely.
And it's kind of cool to think, and it's like, you know, if we really consider like the radical claims of Jesus, it would take a true revolutionary to really adopt that.
100%. Well, and the other cool thing is to see, like one of the leaders that you were able to talk to with us in the camp, you know, he wouldn't tell us his actual faith, right? He wouldn't say the words.
I remember.
But a lot of the people in that camp are Muslim, or identify as Muslim, but they look to Judeo-Christian based governments as what the answer is if they succeed in their goals, right?
I think my impression was when I was there, there's a lot of people who they do have, you know, let's remember that Iranians are not Arab.
Correct.
Iranians are
Persians.
And so there's a little bit more of an acuity to understand culture in the West.
Absolutely.
Right? So you see that, and you see, like you're saying, they want a government that's kind of based on Judeo-Christian principle. But so I think there's people kind of all along the journey. And then also what I see in there is these radical rebels who really have come to embrace Jesus.
Unbelievably so.
It's fantastic.
And I'd never seen, you know, like growing up in church, you go to middle school summer camp and like 20 kids get up and accept Jesus, right? And they cry and everybody's happy, and then you go home and it's just kind of back to life, right?
Yeah.
Even like the porter in one of our hotels, Sylvan, he's a new Christian there. He's like 35 years old. And this dude, every picture in his phone gallery is a picture of Jesus on the cross. He is so amped up and pumped up on Jesus and God as a father, which is just such a foreign concept to people who are coming from the Muslim faith. And just to see like the happiness and the passion that comes with Jesus in their heart, right? I'd never seen that before being in Iraq. And it's not like we brought them to Christ, right? These are people who already know Jesus, that as soon as they found out we were Christians, it just was amazing.
That's just cool, man. I tell you, I think up there the potential is amazing, because there's ministry that can occur right there in the camps, and we're seeing like an openness to hear the gospel.
Absolutely.
There's some fruit that's beginning to occur. And so you got that kind of swath of things there. But, you know, right there, you're so close to the Iranian border. And so, without commenting a whole lot, but that certainly opens up a lot of possibilities that way.
It definitely does.
And that's kind of like, and then if you go the other direction, you're right on the border of Syria.
Right, which is actually the initial camp that we work in is not far from there, right? So we've kind of given ourselves doorways to both of those areas, which is really cool.
So it's going to be, I think it'll be cool to see in the years to come what comes out of that.
Oh, no doubt about it. No doubt about it. And I mean, one of the things that just, I never would have thought of it, but one of the guys there told us with the internet and social media, right? The younger generation in the Middle East, even the Arabs, right? The younger generation is looking internationally and thinking, man, like all these other countries are going further and we're stuck at this point. What's the difference between us and them?
Like, what's the deal?
What is the difference? Oh, it's Islam, right? And so there's such a faith-based culture, right, that they want a faith, right? They want something to hold on to, but they're starting to realize Islam is not it.
I found the same thing. When I was in Iran once, and particularly among the younger people, because when I got inside there, I was shocked at a couple things. One thing I was shocked at is it was probably one of the most pro-American countries I've ever been through. Shocking, right? We don't hear that in our press. I was shocked at that. I was shocked at there's a hunger really for Jesus, and I saw that it's fairly unprecedented, you know. And I think a lot of that was these guys saw, they're Persian, not Arab, so they saw the Arabs and saw Islam as the oppressor,
right?
And so they had kind of turned toward more. It's really like in Iran, if you go, it's Friday and it's the day of prayer, the tower comes on and the guy's chanting the prayers. If you go inside the mosque, it's totally empty. Right? So they're not Muslim, really. but they had kind of adopted this secular, humanistic kind of
Sure.
thinking that's not working.
Sure.
And so now man, I'm telling you, over there,
Trying to fill in
they're
that.
looking for something.
It's so true, and that's one of the things that's blown my mind is, you know, and we've stayed in a couple different cities in Iraq now, or Kurdish Iraq,
Right.
and the call to prayer comes on multiple times a day, right, over the whole city to the speakers, the whole 9 yards. Nobody
pays
does
attention
anything.
to it.
Nope.
Yeah.
Not a bit. I mean, not a bit. I didn't see a single person stop doing what they were doing. I didn't see a single, and it's just not.
Well,
you know,
I mean, you could also say in America, you call a prayer meeting, they're not really there.
they're
either.
not really. That's absolutely true. But it's not. You know, before you go, you think sand and everybody's a crazy Muslim,
Yeah,
right? And
right.
it just couldn't be further from the truth.
It's not like that.
It's just not.
Middle
You get in a
East is-
taxi cab, there's crucifixes hanging from the rearview mirror sometimes, or like, I mean, it's just crazy.
The Middle East is one of my favorite places to travel.
Easily I can't say my favorite. One of my favorite places to travel. It's hard to beat Costa Rica.
Yeah, I'll agree with
Hard
you
to beat
there.
Costa Rica.
I'll agree with you there.
But man,
it is a great place to travel.
It is, and the you know, my mom certainly has always been proud of her Southern hospitality. Right,
Yeah.
we love our Southern hospitality here. They take hospitality to the next level. over
Buddy,
there.
that's true.
It's insane. There's no doubt about it.
Well, I want to close with one thought.
Sure.
Because you went over there, and in the meantime, you've developed a real affinity for Iranians.
Yes, I have. I have.
So, tell us about that.
Well, yeah. So.
And in particular, maybe even a particular.
Yeah, so
Iranians.
I certainly have found a love for the Kurdish people and the Iranians that we've come to work with over there, and I have happened to find myself a girl with Iranian Persian heritage
There you go.
that I love very much, and I'm excited to grow more with.
You the man.
Thank you.
Hey guys, thanks for praying, and continue to pray for the Middle East. It's explosive over there, really, what God's doing, and we feel like just kind of honored to get to be a part of all that. So
Absolutely.
continue to pray. We appreciate it. God bless you guys.